Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Planet Lizzdom. Today is Thursday, November 4th, and I'm sad to say Halloween is officially over, but it's not. I'm so happy to see all of you guys coming in and tuning in every single week, and it is such a big deal to have you here. Um, it's been a really busy month, actually. October was crazy, and it finished with Frightmare in the Falls, which was amazing. I actually had the opportunity to go there and meet some fans and make some new friends, and I'm going to tell you all about it later. But tonight, I'm really excited to bring to you the creators of the Mythimals. Guys, I want you to give a very big and warm welcome to Andrew Robertson and Dennis Freitas, my partners in crime. Hi, guys. How are you?
Hello.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you so much for joining me for a really last-minute show. Oh my gosh.
We're all prepared. We're all prepared.
Well, as soon as we finished Frightmare in the Falls, I was thinking, what is happening now? Christmas is happening now, and what a perfect opportunity to discuss this really amazing book that the three of us have made together. I know. Oh my gosh. And then the fart happens. I love it. I mean, for those of you who don't know, children really need a place and a platform to kind of explore their dramas and realize that things like this do happen. And Andrew, you're such an amazing writer, and I want you to kind of tell us what inspired you to write something like this.
Well, for years, I've been writing sort of short and long form horror. Like mainly I do short stories. I'm in a lot of anthologies. That's part of the reason I was at Frightmare as well, along with you. And I suddenly had nieces and a lot of my friends were having kids. And I thought, maybe we could write something that was like a mix of the monsters of the Great Lakes Horror Company, who's the publisher of And Then the Fart Happened, and something more suitable for kids. So originally that we were toying with the idea of them being the Animonsters, which was too close to Animaniacs, or the Mythomonsters, but then we landed on the Mythimals because it was kind of like mythology, which is like there's a lot of beautiful stories and creatures and animals that are somewhere between beautiful and scary, which I think is a really great place, especially for kids. When you look at old children's, well, what we call children's stories now, but like the Brothers Grimm, none of those stories had really, really happy endings, and they were really creepy, but that's what was accepted as children's stories because they were moral tales. And I thought, well, let's create a series of sort of monstrous but adorable characters. And we'll get into it. I had nothing to do with the actual design of the characters. The idea was just that they were going to be a mashup of existing animals and fantastical creatures, and maybe a little scary and maybe a little fun, and tell a story. And instead of it ending with a moral lesson where someone gets punished, how about we make the hero the kid that feels bullied, or the kid that feels embarrassed or shy or anxious? Because I think for a lot of people growing up, especially growing up in the 70s and the 80s, when mainstream media really was prevalent for a lot of us, and a lot of us felt attacked by it, but we had to participate in pop culture to buy into what that was and to be accepted. You had to create these constructs of personality instead of really being yourself, and very few people were. So when you saw creatures, I will call them, like let's say Cyndi Lauper or Boy George or Sylvester or Divine, these larger than life characters that were so colorful and seemed so beyond boring humans, and they were so widely accepted. And even when they were confronted by something, they had this strength and this character to sort of shut people down and be themselves. And I wanted kids to have a series like that. So this is the first in a series of books like that.
And I think it's so wonderful. I mean, right off the top, look at the quality that Blurb is helping us with, because self-publishing, as everybody knows, is really kind of the way to go right now, because buying in bulk is just not realistic anymore, and it's not very environmentally friendly either. Unless you know that you're with a publisher that's going to wholesale sell it. None of us really want to sit on 1,000 copies of any book, really.
We're waiting for Costco to call us.
Yes, actually, Costco, you can reach us.
Hashtag Costco.
Costco, Indigo, Scholastic. I don't know. And really, anyone that wants to hop on this, we're totally welcome.
Is it weird that I still think of Indigo as chapters? That's how old I am.
No,
don't-
I still say chapters Indigo.
Okay.
You know what I think of when I think of Scholastic? And it's something that I don't think that they have anymore. I'm not sure. And maybe if anybody wants to comment, they can let us know. But for me, Scholastic was that flyer that would come into your classroom and you would check the boxes of the books that you wanted. And there were like books and toys and things. I remember when I was a kid, one of my favorite books that I got from there was this Halloween craft book where you would like, there were patterns inside that you could like recreate, like folding dolls or spider web mobiles, and it would tell you how to do all these different creepy crafts. And it's like, if they didn't know I was gay at that point or a witch, I don't know.
I used to look forward to the Scholastic fair so much. Like I would literally I would read that flyer page to page. I would read about every single book to know if I wanted to read it.
It was the precursor to consumers distributing.
Yep. It really was.
Well, that was the whole thing with the 80s was ordering out of catalogs. And I kind of, not to be like, but there was something really exciting about looking through that catalog and having it physically in front of you. Kind of like the way that I feel about the liner notes that would come in cassettes and CDs in the 80s, and you would read through them all, but you would never be able to get to the bottom of some of the stories because there was no friggin' internet. But I remember this one time I was in Mrs. Rice's class in grade 4, and that Scholastic box came in and she was like, all right, your orders are all here. And I was sick the day those orders went in, and I felt so left out that I'm going to have to do a Mythimals book about that.
I think so. That is a real drama for a child. That is a really big deal. Oh my God. That's like missing the one-day sale at Macy's or something as an adult, where, that thing that you really wanted, you're not going to have it now.
The whole Renfrew Now or Never. Yeah. You got to get in there first.
Absolutely. Now, getting back to, the original idea, because I remember, Andrew, you had come to me about illustrating this story, and I loved the story from the moment I read it, but I actually had a really hard time illustrating it for about a year and a half. Every time I tried to illustrate it, I kept trying to be Robert Munch, and everything was really dry. I was trying to, draw human kids, and, all of a sudden I'm trying to assign genders and personalities. And I was like, this is really boring. Like, if I was a kid, I wouldn't want to read this book yet. And by the way, Natasha, right, you're absolutely right. I live for these book orders and fairs. Mm-hmm. We still do. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Bring it back. Yeah, I think I went on a tirade about Scholastic and didn't actually answer your first question.
Oh, that's okay.
the way that the story came about was all of those thoughts, and I was like, let's do something for kids with anxieties, etc. And I remember when I was taking swimming lessons at Fern Avenue Public School in Toronto, they had us all sitting at the side of the pool after we'd been in the pool. So everyone's swimsuit was wet, and you were sitting on tiles, and it's basically a recipe for disaster. And I guess they stopped us to be like, okay, the next activity we're going to do is this, and this is how you're safe and whatever. And this one kid moved and one just ripped, and it echoed throughout that entire pool, back and forth. And kids were ducking and screaming and jumping out of the way. And there was a lot of pointing and laughing.
Yep.
And I just sat there, and like through my entire life, I'm really easy to blush at someone else's misfortune. Like, I think I'm too empathetic towards people. I mean, that probably sounds terrible, but I get embarrassed for other people really, really easily. And so when I would see things like that happen and other kids laugh, I was like, no, please make it stop, because then I'm blushing and they're like, was it you? And I'm like, I can't even talk. And so that's where the idea for the story came from. And it just kind of popped out one day, as it were.
Like this
yeah, exactly. Like introducing. And it all happened pretty easily, and naming the characters came around pretty easily. Getting the sort of meter and the flow, and I'm a huge fan of Dorothy Parker and her rhyming scheme. And what I like about her is, and I know this is an adult show, for the most part. So I'm going to do one of her poems right now, and it's pretty safe for multiple audiences. Anyways,
okay.
Just one that says, I'd like to have a martini, 2 at the very most, 3 I'm under the table, 4 I'm under the host. And I like that, like, back and forth rhyme scheme with sort of like a hook ending.
Yeah.
And so I wanted the book to have that hook ending where the bullied becomes the victor, but not without a cost for everyone else, So it's kind of silly and fun. And by the end, everyone's in on the joke, but the first kid done wrong kind of comes out ahead of everyone else.
Absolutely. Actually, when I was 12 years old, I was at a French camp, and I still remember this. We were having one of those pageant nights where all the kids come and you do different skits and stuff like that. And
And tiaras.
Something like that. But like I was preteen and very awkward, and everything was a big deal. And someone did a skit that was particularly funny, and I laughed so hard that I farted. And everyone just kind of stopped and started laughing, and I wanted to just melt into the floor. And that always carried with me because even at 12 years old, I was still a kid. That was still a really big deal, and I didn't know how to laugh it off. As an adult, I think that would be the most hysterical thing.
And I think that's interesting. The fart, which is something that I'm going to get serious about this, that you are taught to be embarrassed about.
Yeah.
I'm going to go on tangent on that. It's funny because you can fart at home and everyone laughs, but outside in public, you fart and it's something embarrassing. And I guess that's, I don't want to trivialize anything, but that, I guess, is the first sort of trauma that kids start feeling and understanding, oh, there's something to be embarrassed about.
Yeah.
And the thing I like about this book, besides there being no gender to anyone, like you could put yourself into any of these characters, that it normalizes this trauma, this embarrassing moment. It shows that everyone does this. And so we talk about mental health, and that's sort of helpful when someone is going through this I say traumatic, but this embarrassing moment. It normalizes that you don't have to be worried, you don't have to be embarrassed, you don't have to be shamed. As easy as a fart, like it may sound silly, but if you look into that, it really is. It can be effective.
No, it totally makes sense because people get traumatized by different things, and some people, when they say like, "Oh, I had PTSD over that," and that's over dramatizing things because you either have it or you don't, and don't assign mental health diagnosis to yourself that you don't have. But bullying can be very traumatizing for kids, and it can affect the way they feel about themselves and their body and its functions. And I'm going to do a fart fact right now.
Oh, I love fart facts.
Did you know that a fart does not smell until 10 seconds after it leaves the body? So that's how long you have to run the hell away. Because I Googled, why did my fart follow me? And the reason is because, as you walk through the cloud, it takes that long and you didn't get far enough away. So 10 seconds. There's the 5-second rule, the 2-second rule. Well, this is the 10-second rule.
So are you saying you fart, count to 10, and then walk away?
You have 10 seconds to get the hell away from where you are. But if you're continuously going with it, thank you, Sephra. If you're in the process and you're still going, it's going to follow you. You have to drop it, be like 1, 2, 3, and run the hell away. This is educational. This is important information.
But wait, I have to ask though, if you smelt it, you didn't necessarily dealt it.
Yeah, that's no longer the rule. Yeah.
Yeah,
what
you
terrible
can
English.
Seconds and then walk out of an area and be like, I don't know, guys. I'm not smelling it over here. It's like a nuclear blast. You've got to be clear of the area of the scorched earth.
All right. Otherwise, the professor is going to have to say something.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Now, Dennis, how exactly would you describe your role in bringing this book together? Because you really kind of brought all the elements into a cohesive, story. Visually.
I'm going to read what it says. It says backgrounds and coloring.
Backgrounds.
And that's essentially, it's going to dumb it down. But I took your stuff,
the black and white,
which is beautiful. But I think through colors, it gives it more life and more animation. I knew you guys were working on it, and you knew my background textile design and graphic design. So it was a good match between all of us. Bless you for doing all the, I call it the hard work of drawing it out. That takes a lot.
Thank you.
I'm going to misquote this so badly, but there's a movie out there, chasing Amy and these two friends, and one is the penciler and one is the
Inker?
Anchor.
and
Yeah, I think that's what
he
you call it.
brings the inker, just saying, you basically trace what I do. True, I essentially traced what you did, but I added elements that gave it a little bit more nuance. And then I had to decide what kind of background and what color coloration was going to
Yeah.
go through the whole thing, or else it would have just been a black and white.
Oh my God,
and
you did such a great job.
Thank you. Thank you. I remember us sitting down and actually having color chips from Home Depot,
Yep.
which I'm going to admit now, I didn't follow because I didn't agree with all the colors that we chose. We chose a very
Yep.
sophisticated palette.
Yeah.
It was like 60 stylings, like this amber, this mustard, these olive greens. I could see how it would work animated.
Yeah.
But because if it was still, it had to be bright, in my opinion. And I took a cue from all of their little mohawks that were rainbow. If that was rainbow, they had to be colorful. So I still took, like, if there was a red sweater, it used to be a burnt sweater, an ombre, burnt orange sweater. I just made it red. I felt like it had to be alive. I had to be really colorful. Kids would gravitate towards this beautiful coloration. Like, everything is so simple. There's a simple story on the side, simple line art. Let's just make it primary colors. And I think it really lent to the simplicity and the message that gets out.
Oh, absolutely. You're so smart.
I mean,
it's totally part of the process.
Yeah, we went through the whole getting 100 color swatches from Home Depot. Don't come after us. Just to make sure that the characters were all unique, but then it takes someone with your skill set to look at all of those different colors based on your background and say, actually, this is what's going to work. And we need this depth of color and this texture and this sort of color treatment.
And I think,
really work.
I totally agree. And I think that's what I brought, even unconsciously, the eye to put it all together and how it should be assembled. I do have a background. This is many moons ago. I loved being in yearbook, and yearbook really got me started on this visual communications journey. And so I have an eye for layout, and the backgrounds came about just through the artists that I really liked. Eric Carl, who did The Very Hungry Caterpillar, Brown Bear, What Do You See? He has these textures within his drawings, within his illustrations, and I absolutely love that. To a lesser extent, South Park even does that. They have textures within each character because it looks like, I think, construction paper. And I always loved how simple it was just to add texture, and you didn't really even need a background, but it gave it such life. And so if you look at the stuff that we did in the book, the backgrounds look sponged, which gives it an air of school. You're back in childhood, you're back in school where it looks chalk-like.
Like that's so brilliant because
the little farts, just that little sponge effect, just gives it that extra. It's not flat. It gives it that, like, that joie de jeu.
Wasn't the background actually, I think we had this discussion, it was all one background and you moved the characters along it, but if you pulled the book all out, you could actually make the entire background of the classroom from all the backgrounds.
It's a landscape of the entire classroom, and scenes just take place in different parts of that book.
Thank you, Rochelle. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Rochelle. That is brilliant.
And it was great to see you this weekend.
Oh, you got to... Yes, because Rochelle is amazing and we love her. And, thank you so much, Rochelle. I mean, what folks don't necessarily realize is that this first book was about 5 years in the making. It really was. Like, no joke at all. From pillar to post, from concept to finished product. I mean, I am so glad and grateful to do this book with both of you because you're both of the same mind as I am. Let's get it right. Let's not rush it. Let's get it right. And we did revisit the color and the layout and the plan quite a few times, but none of us was ever terribly married to an idea. And, we both the three of us really know how to use each other's strengths.
I think we respected each other and understood that Andrew was words, you were illustration, I was colors, and we understood and respected each other for that, and we didn't want to step on each one of our toes. Each one of our toes.
We didn't want to step on every toe.
Well, and here's the thing, Dennis, your ads for the Mythimals are fantastic. They're bright, they're exciting. You know,
and choosing font is difficult. That has to be one of the most difficult things because it sets the air for the entire book.
Yeah. Tell people the rule about fonts for their book covers.
Oh, yes.
Anything that they do, there's rules.
Maximum 3 fonts. Maximum 3 fonts. Too many fonts is irritating. Also,
this is too much.
No papyrus.
Yes.
No Comic Sans.
No Dakota.
We don't.
No papyrus.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Why did people use those?
It was more difficult because you had done the title. So I couldn't do anything with this title, and I had to find what would lend to the font of this title.
And here I am looking at the book to the side. You chose very, very well. Is there a name for this font?
I would have to look.
I thought you were going to
in my notes or the top of my head. Sorry.
It's like the 11 herbs and spices
of the fonts that I have.
Yes, Rochelle, fonts is super tedious. And
yes,
and one thing, anyone that ever listened to my podcast, The Great Lakes Horror Company, which Sappho was a big part of, we started the Great Lakes Horror Company as an offshoot of our Horror Writers Association Ontario chapter because we wanted a vehicle to publish some books that we could have at our tables. Because often when you're with independent publishers or small publishers, which a lot of our horror writers are, and where this whole self-publishing idea, this momentum came from, it's very easy for an indie publisher to disappear or not have stock or not get it to you on time. So we thought, let's publish some of our own stuff. And then when it came around to doing this kids book, I looked around at different places that could do a children's book and do it at an affordable price. And to do it through Amazon would have been a nightmare. And the reason that we don't sell this book on Amazon is because to sell this book on Amazon, it would cost $47 a copy. Explain to me why that is. And there's a lot of problems with Amazon that we won't get into on this podcast, but Blurb really worked it out. I wanted something hardcover. I wanted something that would last and a kid could give it to another kid when they grew up. I wanted something that was interactive, which is where the idea for the end pages of the book came from, because we loved your illustrations so much. I thought, is there a way to use the black and white illustrations a little bit further? So when this book ends, there's a thank you note, and then there's a series of coloring pages that you can trace, or you can copy, or you can color in directly in the book.
My favorite thing growing up was having this sort of thing at the end, like tracing. That's how I learned my arts, my skills, by tracing stuff in the book. And I think this lends to kids having that opportunity.
And I use color.
There was something that we touched on earlier that I wanted to talk to you about, which is when I turned the story over to you. Sorry, this is like being at in the dentist mirror. I'm like, which way am I going? When I turned it over to you, it was literally just the poem, and I said, take. Yes, it is a nightmare. Yeah. And increasingly, there's all these different algorithms that you need to go through to trick them into letting everyone see. Hi, Bobby De Silva. We still have to drop off a book for Bobby. Next time downtown. It's been 2 years since I've been downtown, darling. But when I turned the writing over to you, I said, just design the characters however you think. And I'd seen a lot of your art in the past, and your art often incorporates anthropomorphic elements of objects or creatures that aren't necessarily human necessarily. Yeah. So if you go that way, this is one of your paintings in the background. You'll be familiar with it, but your audience may not be. It's a Matryoshka doll from a series. Absolutely gorgeous. And, is she alive? Is she not? Who knows? There she is on the...
Here I am tipping my glass onto my keyboard like an idiot. Yes.
So, I totally left it up to you, and I had no idea what would come back from it. And some of the other stuff that I have by you, there was your Madonna Bunnies series where you different eras of Madonna. Here we have Cherish, which is my all-time favorite Madonna song. And then cute little Scully cupcakes. And there's just something about your artwork that's really, really accessible and enjoyable and fun. And so when you came back with the character designs and you actually came back with character descriptions of what they like stripes, they like ice cream, they like pizza, that was like above and beyond in bringing them to life. And so I want to ask you, as a part of looking at like, oh, I'm going to draw these kids. Okay, maybe they're not going to be kids. And how did you arrive at the Pegafox and the oh my goodness, I don't want to get the name wrong, especially because we did this. Unikitty, Unibunny, Pegafox, Unidragon, Octopussy, whoo, Racy.
Yeah.
How did it come about?
Well, that one's for the parents. Well, again, when I was trying to come up with the characters, I was like, well, is Bobby maybe, a young Asian boy? Is Linda maybe, a Slavic, redheaded girl? And it became really contrived and boring, and it became the same old story. I was like, well, I want a multicultural, multi-gender, multi-everything story, but it's not capturing my imagination. And that's when I came to you and I thought, how would you feel about an anthropomorphic cast? Why don't we just really go for the imagination and inspire and invite kids to create their own personality? And, I remember as a kid, if a character loved pizza, well, I love that character now. That's my character because I love pizza. And there's a commonality and a connection, and I wanted it to be fun. And I don't necessarily remember exactly how Linda became a Pegafox or how Bella became, whatever she is, because I don't remember all of a sudden, but it just,
Let's see.
It became the sort of thing where, like Bobby loves cool shirts. He's fun, and so Bobby will be wearing different cool shirts in various, stories of the Mythimals. And I just wanted it to be something that every child can identify on some level. There might be one element where all of a sudden they go, I love cool shirts too. Bobby's my favorite character, and I think I was thinking too hard. I had to remember to keep it simple, stupid, KISS. By making the Mythimals and creating an anthropomorphic world, we now have complete and utter license to go everywhere with it. There are no rules to this. And that is something that I think children really embrace because they grow up in rules. But in imagination, there are no rules.
Yeah, and I love the rainbow hair, and I love the wings, and I love the unicorn horns. And it's a series of animals and mythological creatures that don't necessarily lend or land themselves together all of the time. But when you came back with it, I thought this is absolutely perfect because you're right. There's a lot of stories or cartoons or movies where kids can see themselves in certain characters, especially, like I said, when we grew up in the 80s, you would know which character you were because there was such a typecasting sort of stereotypical, here's the pretty girl. She's definitely going to be white. Maybe she's going to be a redhead.
Is this The Breakfast Club?
It is totally The Breakfast Club.
How about the Goonies?
Or Pretty in Pink, or they're all the same.
Yeah.
So there's the outsider characters, there's the nerd characters, there's the queer character, and watching them, you would know exactly what would happen. And I don't think, I'll hold Schitt's Creek up as an example of a world where all of those biases and stereotypes and phobias don't totally exist, because throughout that series, the fact that anyone was gay or queer or bi or questioning was never questioned by the rest of the characters. Exactly. It was just something that existed. And I know it's maybe, an ideal world, but why not take a view into what that world could look like? And Scooby-Doo characters too. My favorite was Shaggy. And what's interesting is Shaggy was a vegetarian, apparently, but they would always have him eating burgers. So I didn't really get that. But yeah, I wanted a world where kids would make mistakes, and by the end of it, they would realize, we're all together in this, but only because they all also realized where they were as a potential victim of their own devices, which may be formulaic as well. Maybe people say, hoist it on their own petard. But I wanted this series, as it goes on, to increasingly become the characters are more conscious of everything, and they move away from bullying, realizing that we're all very much the same. and in a world where anyone can be anything.
Absolutely. And I think that is such an important message because, I've been, you know me, I advertise and talk about this wonderful book we've created to everybody. I've shown it to adults and I've shown it to toddlers, and everybody connects with it in a different way. But parents especially love it because we're talking about farts. Everyone is still a child at heart. We still love to hear about farts and talk about farts and read about farts. Anything to get the kids laughing is a big deal.
Fart is the unifier between animals, people, young, old. It is the unifier.
Oh my gosh, when I used to babysit my niece and nephew, I would just fart into their hand, and that would be hours of entertainment. They'd see me and be like, Auntie Liz.
What did you call that? When you do that on someone, a kid's belly or
Zerbert?
You call it Zerbert?
I call it Zerbert.
Okay. Raspberry? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the comments, tell us what you've called it.
Yeah, actually, I'd like to know.
All the time.
And while we do that, guys, I'm going to play a commercial, and we'll be back in 2 seconds.
Hey everyone, Planet Lizzdom now has a Patreon. Your help will allow Liz to make the show even bigger, cover costs, and help bring on celebrity guests. Go to patreon.com/Planet Lizzdom and pledge now.
Tune into Planet Lizzdom every Thursday at 8 Eastern Standard Time. Ha! Dinner!
And that, folks, is how my marigolds died.
I love a boglin.
Oh my god, boglins are so much fun. I play with that boglin all the time. I almost got the eyes to move.
Is it old?
No, it's a new one. We got it at the TV store in Dufferin Mall.
Because I feel like the rubber would get just a little crusty after a while.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, Jim.
Thank you. Jim has been one of our biggest supporters. Jim actually wrote a book as well, and I'm going to be talking to him about it later on. He just doesn't know it yet.
Nice. Like we didn't know.
Surprise! I love an ambush interview. Honestly, the reason I love interviews like this is that none of us have a chance to overthink what we're going to say. So everything we're saying is honest and quite pure. Because I hate a boring interview. I really hate a boring interview. Oh my gosh.
Now, Liz, what were some of your early loves and influences when it came to books when you were a kid?
I obviously grew up on Robert Munsch, and actually for the longest time I had a tiny little paper bag princess book that I carried with me because my grade 1 teacher, Mrs. Follis, gave it to me because I read the actual book, and she had a tiny one, and I used to carry it everywhere. And of course, life happened. I grew up, it got lost. And then about 8 years ago, just after I'd gotten really, really ill, I went to Chapters Indigo or Indigo, what have you, and I bought another version of it, a second version, and I wrote a little something to myself, and I carry it everywhere, and it says, "Be true to yourself, and you will never fall," because the paper bag princess, Elizabeth, she doesn't need Ronald the Prince or anything else, and she slayed the dragon, and I'm born in Year of the Dragon, and I survived a very deadly blood clot in my left lung, and that was a dragon. So that to me always meant something to me. So although I do not illustrate like Robert Munsch, I love his stories. Where the Wild Things Are was a huge deal. Maurice Sendak made a postcard for one of his fans who ate it, and that's the highest compliment right there. Our compliment
is one of mine as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's
The Night Kitchen was so surreal.
Oh yeah,
It's such a bizarre book. Goodbye, Rochelle. Thank you for dropping in.
Thanks, Rochelle. And it's how it's how he felt his fan connected with him. And when I see our fans drawing the farts and sending that to us, that's a really huge deal.
Yeah, one of the first drawings that I got was from Sam Wright, age 7, and it's a copy of the Free at Last page, but he added a bum, and it's like a seagull M, and the day that I dropped it off, he ran inside and he was looking at it, and then he came running outside and he said, "Free at last!" and ran back in, and I was like, "Good, you're reading. I don't care what they read as long as they're reading something."
But that's beautiful because it's encouraging play, and it's encouraging, imagination again. You guys know, and most of my viewers know, but for those who have never met me before, I love Mr. Rogers and Mr. Dressup. I grew up with them. Every time they would draw, I would be so excited. The tickle trunk was a big deal. Mr. Rogers, he would, everybody was his friend. He was kind, and that's kind of the ethos that I want to continue. Like, my first trick-or-treater on Halloween was Mr. Rogers, and I just about bawled my eyes out. He was 2 years old. He had no idea, but his mom did.
Yeah.
I really feel like we are bringing the next generation of children are very, very fortunate in that they're growing up in a culture that's a lot more accepting of being unique from the time you are a child. I think that's a very, very important thing. And something I love about the Mythimals is that it is so inclusive. That's the word I've been looking for. Inclusive.
Full of expression.
Expression.
You could be unique, but to be allowed the space to express yourself, I think is also very important. And you see that in the book where they all get a chance to express themselves, and they all express themselves through the colors I gave them and the depictions you gave them, just each unique unto themselves.
Yeah, and the fact that none of the characters are the same, I think, is really important, because it's in homogeneity that which oddly it starts with homo, but it's through that type of culture where people start to get othered. And I mean, we're not solving world problems necessarily, but I hope it's a step in the right direction. And I just want to say, in terms of snarts, yes, snarting is a thing. It can happen. You got to look out for it. Just, you got to close your eyes when it happens, because otherwise I think they pop right out of your head.
Oh, smarts. I was like, what? Okay, yeah, I've had that.
Snarting. But I think it's really important to celebrate childhood in a way that lets kids be themselves. Like, my mother is, she was, until the pandemic came around, she was an ECE at a school in Toronto. And she had 2 gender questioning kids in kindergarten that would come in dressed however they wanted that day. Some days one of them would come in a prom dress, and the next day would be in like a little boy suit, I guess it would be. And because she has queer family members, and because she's very sort of accepting of people, and is more interested in someone growing up being comfortable and whole in themselves, she would encourage the other kids to just treat it like it's a normal day. And the kids came around to thinking that maybe they weren't dressing up enough, because the kid would come in a really fancy dress one day, and they would be like, oh, were we supposed to dress nice today? Because they would think it was dressing nice, and they wouldn't take it as some sort of, battle of gender. And I had the absolute pleasure when the pandemic started, and they weren't able to go into school. And this is before my mother had to retire, when they went back to school, because she's at an age and et cetera, where, it would have been very dangerous for her health to go in. But every week I would sit down with her, and she would read a kid's book, and I would film it and edit it, and she would do an activity related to the book. And I loved a lot of her choices. And one of them was a book called The Kissing Hand by Audrey Penn. And it's about separation anxiety. It's 2 raccoons. And it makes me cry. You got to read it. That book is some cute. It's not sad, but when something makes you cry because you're like, oh, that's so beautiful. Everyone should check that one out too. It's a really great message on separation anxiety and what you can do to help a kid with that.
And it's called The Kissing Hand.
The Kissing Hand, yeah.
Okay, that's pretty awesome. I feel very, very, very excited about the Mythimals, and I really love where we're all going with it. I just want to show that you did a pop-up shop back in the spring with Swan Dive.
I think that was before we had stickers.
That was before we had stickers, actually, and it was very well received, because there were some parents that came along, and their toddlers just immediately opened up their book and started responding to it. So that was really reassuring. And I'm really proud to say that you and Dennis, you guys really did the legwork to bring us out to Nerdcore.
Oh, we love Nerdcore. Anyone in Hamilton should go support them.
Yay!
Absolutely. And I really wanted to kind of, feature them, because we really do appreciate that support because, Mythimals may be small now, but it is mighty and it is growing.
Yeah,
It
and
really,
it's only
really
through
is.
developing that community and all of us supporting each other that artists and creatives and people that do conventions and run small stores, we've got to work together, because over the course of the pandemic, if anyone suffered, it was small businesses, because all the big businesses were allowed to stay open and sell all the mainstream crap. But it's through supporting small time and local and independent in your neighborhood that you have a beautiful, creative, innovative, and wonderful neighborhood and a vibrant, independent economy. And that's the most important. There's some crap nation. We do love a crap nation and some gorgeous Lizzdom paintings.
Absolutely. And it was so nice. There's Rochelle and Joe. Joe, I'm tripping over my words. I'm forgetting how to talk. I talk too much. Rochelle and Joe have been really huge supporters and fans of the Mythimals. So thank you so much, guys. It was really neat to meet fans and make new friends at Frightmare in the Falls because, yes, the Mythimals, they are anthropomorphic. They're not creepy, but people who are into horror do love imagination, and I think that's where it's really, really important. And it was really great to meet the folks that are reading this book and who did come out to see all of us. That was really cool. And I'm really happy to say that we made a lot of new friends that day and a lot of new fans. So thank you guys for loving Mythimals the way we do.
Yeah, it was great to see people respond to it. And I think it says a lot about your art as well. And the color and the textures and the palette that Dennis chose, that people respond to it visually right away. That part I really, really enjoy. And while the Mythimals may not be scary themselves, the way I tie it back into the Great Lakes Horror Company, because this is published by Great Lakes Horror Company Kids, is that some of the subject matter can be scary. You know what? There's nothing like accidentally farting and waiting for the reaction around you. That can be pretty terrifying. And there's a lot of embarrassing and anxiety-ridden things. There's other topics that we'll cover. I already have the idea for the next book. It's half written. We'll see where that goes. But there's a lot of different things that can create horrific situations for you at any age.
But isn't it scary already that animals are talking? Can't that be seen as something scary? They're walking about on their hindquarters. That's terrifying.
When you're a kid, I think it doesn't really matter at all. Here, I want to show off the wonderful animation that you've been making, Dennis. Like, it's so cool. And I know that there's no actual sound to go with it, but I just wanted to show this off because, again, it captures the whole essence of the Mythimals. Like, it's a really big deal. There's also this one here, Poot. Like,
yeah,
okay. You make it so much fun. Like,
when he skedaddles,
you bring it to life. Like, even that font is fantastic.
The other influence that I wanted to bring up, because it's been with me for a very long time. It's Richard Scarry's best word book ever. This is my original that I grew up with. I'm not this old, but this book is from 1963. This thing is falling apart. But the thing I loved about this, besides learning, was just the great, like the emptiness of it. And then you put yourself into these different situations. I spent hours just looking, not even reading, because I was too young to read, just imagining what was going on in these different settings. And I think that, and I like that about our book, where there is emptiness and you can imagine stuff that's going on in there. Filling it up with too much detail gives you a story already. So there has to be a balance between your imagination and a narrative. And I think we struck a good balance with that.
Is he the one with the worm with like the outline head?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, is that all the cats look stoned? Show everyone they do.
like that bear right there. What's going on with that bear? What's going on with that bear?
But I used to do the same thing with the Richard Scarry books because I couldn't read either, but it did foster storytelling in my mind, and I really do feel like the Mythimals invites that as well,
Like there might be something going on that Andrew wrote, but there's other stuff going on in just the illustration that I really like.
Absolutely. And again, your choice of color is just so good.
So you're saying going against what we decided was a good idea?
Actually, you know what? I'm a big fan of do it now, ask for forgiveness later. Sometimes you just know better. And sometimes, you need to do it for everyone else to see. There's actually a story of the hairy armpit that I want to share with everybody that I learned a few years back when I was doing a commission for someone. And it went from a 3.5-hour commission to a 73-hour commission. I learned a very important lesson. A, make a contract. And B, make a contract with billable hours. And the changes kept happening, changes. And it became so maddening that I just didn't know what to do. And my friend said to me, once you get out of this and you finish it, remember the story of the hairy armpit. And it goes that a man had made this commercial poster. And he put his heart and soul into it. It was beautiful. He brought it to the board, and all of a sudden they started picking it apart. Well, can you change this? Can you change that? Da, 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 da. And all of a sudden he had to start all over again. And his superior took him aside and he said, next time, why don't you give him a hairy armpit? And what that means is put something in the mix that is just so out of place that that's the only thing that they're focusing on.
Yeah.
So they say, I love it. Just get rid of the hairy armpit and we're great.
I hope no one from work is watching this, but I actually do that.
Yeah.
I do that, knowing that they're going to pick that out, take it out, and they'll like everything else. I 100% agree with that.
That is smart. And that, you know what that is called, my friends? Performance management.
Yes.
And everybody does it. It's just sometimes you have to learn the hard way, because everybody wants to put their thumbprint on everything. They want to change something, and
that's what I really liked about this whole thing. There was no ego. There was no we each knew where our thumbprint was. Clearly defined by the title page, what our role was. But I love that about us. We each just respected and knew and didn't want to. There was no ego attached to it. We just wanted it out there. We loved what it was. We wanted it out there.
And I think that's why the Mythimals is going to, endure and grow. Very quickly in our last minute, what can we expect in the future from the Mythimals? Andrew, do you have any plans?
Yes. The next story is about a bad lunch. And so all the Mythimals go into the cafeteria. There's a new kid that shows up and they open their lunch and everyone is absolutely horrified by it. It smells weird. It looks weird. It must taste bad. And so in typical Mythimal style, they go around the table. Everyone picks apart everyone else's meal and how weird and odd and whatever it is. And they'll realize by the end of it that maybe we don't all like the same thing, but we can find a way to appreciate and enjoy each other's company, even if we don't like the same foods. I was going to call it, and then cilantro happened because God damn it, I fucking hate cilantro. Well, let's keep it in the realm of a fantastical.
That is so
And
funny.
who knows, I might bring back those original colors that we decided into the food.
That's a great idea. Look at you, see?
Someone may eat a magic mushroom and there's a dream sequence.
With the adult version.
Bye, Natasha.
Bye, Natasha. Thank you so much for tuning in. Guys, head to blurb.ca/B/106-48087 and order your copy today, because you know what? Christmas is around the corner and kids still love books. They really, really do. And stickers. You can get stickers as well. And, I think it's a really great story. It encourages drawing, and we would love to see some fan art when you're done. Please go follow us at the Mythimals on Facebook. I forgot to add that banner because I am a busy, crazy artist.
Yeah, and if you want the stickers, order them directly from us because we can't get them to you through Blurb, but they're included with the cost of the book when you order directly from us, either through Instagram or Facebook.
Yes,
Just
absolutely.
look at the Mythimals and you'll find us there.
Yep.
We're going to go at Instagram.
To come soon.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And listen, guys, I am going to do a gratitude post tomorrow. I will post everything there as well, but please follow the Mythimals on Facebook and Instagram for future updates. Dennis, Andrew, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me tonight. You guys were amazing.
Thank you.
I can't think of a greater dream team to be a part of. I am so proud of what we were up to. Hopefully it won't be another 5 years.
Yeah.
No, now we figured it out. It'll go faster now.
We'll put together a timeline. Oh my gosh. Guys, thank you so much. Have a great night, and I will definitely see you guys online. But don't go away because we have to take a picture after.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, guys. I love you.
Slide.
Oh, sorry. I cut them right off. And I love you guys too. Honestly, it is such a joy to interview all the wonderful artists that I have the luxury of knowing and meeting now. To those who found me at Frightmare in the Falls and guessed who I was, even though I was dressed like Lydia Dietz, you guys are really, really smart. So I really, really appreciate that you could tell it was me. And to all the new fans I've made, welcome. I'm so happy to have you. And if you are so inclined, actually, Planet Lizzdom is actually syndicated now on Carney Show on Twitch out of New York City with Jeff with a G. Every Friday at 8 p.m. You can see archived episodes of this show. So definitely tune in for that. And if you love what I'm doing, please be my Patreon. You're helping me pay the bills and helping me grow even more. So if you go to patreon.com/Planet Lizzdom, even for the price of a coffee, I have different perks that I can have for you guys. And I even put you in the credits. Guys, I want to thank you so much for joining me this week. And remember to tune in and turn on and take part, because you truly never know just who is going to land right here on Planet Lizzdom. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you soon.